It's time to take another look at the research paper, maybe the big picture, but more than that, I want you to see the guidelines, the things I'm looking for that make for a really good research paper. So the information starts on page 94, and I'm not sure I'm going to go over much of that because this is material I'm sure you've already looked at. And please go take a look on Canvas under the modules, research paper modules. I've got 9 or 10 research papers for you to take a look at to get the feel for the structure of the paper itself. Remember, it's got 5 parts. Why are you doing it? What did you know before you started? Then the heart of it is going source by source by source. You have to have at least 10 sources. Make sure you have an academic journal in there somewhere, something with page numbers that you can show me. You can use parenthetical references. And then the 4th section is a summary, should be at least a page long. And that's where you take all that information that you had in your research and you put it in some kind of logical order, and you just boil down everything and give us the heart of your paper. And then the last section is what's ahead for you. So those are the 5 sections of the paper. So I don't think I will spend any more time on 94. If you look at 95 at the top of the page, this is a quick overview of the structure of the thing. So can you see my Roman numerals off to the far left there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are those 5 areas we talked about. So there's Roman numeral 1, top of the page, why you picked the topic, what you knew before starting. And then look at A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's where you start going through source A, information, evaluation, all that kind of stuff. Come down to Roman numeral 4. That's the one that looks like an I and a V. Summarize your information, and then the V is 5, what's ahead for you when you're done. Now, after that, I'm trying to give you just a rough idea of how much space to devote to each of these sections. So I said for numbers 1 and 2, that's going to be extremely short, just a few sentences each. So it may be somewhere around 5 to 10% of your paper. So if you're spending way too much time on this, you might want to cut back some. How about number 3, section 3? That's the story of your search. That's going to be fairly short. Don't spend a lot of time on the story unless you have something really interesting to tell. I have had some really interesting stories that people have shared in their paper, but for the most part it's going to be just a few sentences. And then look where it says Roman numeral 3, B and E, that's referring back up. That's the information you got. That's the heart of the paper. That's the whole point of doing research, is come up with information. So I said somewhere between 50 to 70% of your paper is going to be the information. That's why it is a research paper. And then evaluate your sources. That's going to be another 10, maybe 15% of the paper. Remember, that's where you take a look at the source and say, I trusted the author. It was organized well. It gave me other places I could go to for information. Or it was too hard to read. I couldn't figure out the organization. I didn't really trust. I didn't know anything about the author. There was no information given there. So that's the kind of evaluation that you're going to do. And then Roman numeral 4 at the bottom there, maybe 10 to 15% is your actual summary. That's at least a page long. And then finally, Roman numeral 5, maybe 1 to 5%, just what's ahead. It might be just a couple of sentences, no more than that. All right, bottom of the page, still on page 95, very bottom of the page, I have a checklist and warnings. This is where it can go very, very wrong. So be careful on this. A, potential trouble spots. 1, pretty simple, not enough information. Let me give you an example. You say you found a book. So I'm expecting at least a real solid chapter out of the book, or solid several pages that you're using out of the book, or maybe the whole book. And instead, I get a short paragraph that just says, this book told me what it was like for this person to grow up. Wait a minute. Where's all the information about what it was like for that person to grow up? So don't skim over the information. If it's good, solid information, you've got to spend time developing it and explaining it to us. So maybe not enough information. Number 2, at the very bottom of the page, incorrect organization. What organization? The organization at the top of page 95. You had 1, that's why you're doing it. You had 2, which is what you knew before you started. You had number 3, which is where you went source by source. How'd you find it? What was the information? Evaluate it. Go to the next source. How'd you find it? What's the information? Evaluate it. So that's the structure. And then you have number 4, which is summary. And then you have number 5, what's ahead for you. So once in a while people have gotten lost and they don't have that kind of organization. Flip over to page 96. Number 3, vague evaluations. I'm going to spend some more time on the evaluations, having you turn them in, having me give you some feedback. But please, for the evaluations, you want specifics. Don't just say, I trusted this source. And don't just say, it was organized well. Don't just say, it had some interesting charts. Don't just say, it gave me some other places to go. Be specific. What were the charts like? How do you know it was organized well? If you say you trusted the source, why? Who's the person that wrote it? So be specific in your evaluation. This is crucial. Number 4, watch out for plagiarism. Especially, remember what we talked about. Plagiarism is where you put a lot of information into your paper from another source, and even if you give credit that you took it from another source, if you're using the author's style and words and same sentence structure without quoting it, if you're pretending that that's the way you wrote it, you didn't write it that way. You're actually stealing the author's structure and vocabulary and the way of writing. So use quotation marks if you have to. Most of the time, I want you to be able to take the source and think about it and write it down in your own style. So be careful, otherwise you'll end up with plagiarism. Number 5, the summary was either way too short or it wasn't organized very well. So maybe you're going to organize it by time, or if it's a disease, you might organize it by how do you get it, what does it do to you, and what's ahead as far as trying to cure it. So I don't know, something like that. Then number 6, you've got to get the forms of research down well. Like what? Parenthetical references. Remember, every time you have something that has page numbers, you're going to use parenthetical references. We already covered that. Quotations. You handled the quotations well. You knew what to do if you had too long a quotation. You knew that you could use just a part of a sentence rather than an entire sentence. That would be effective. And your works cited. That's the very last page of your paper where you list all of the sources, and they have to be in a very specific format. So you can look up MLA, go online, type in MLA, works cited for research, and you'll find the exact way to do it. If you go to TAMU.ed, that's Texas A&M University, they have a great writing center and they'll give you a lot of information. If you go to OWL, O-W-L, excuse me, that's put out by Purdue University. It means Online Writing Lab from Purdue. Good places to go to for a lot of help, not just for your research paper. All right, then look at letter B on page 96. These are the guidelines. These are the things I'm going to be looking for. A, good search strategy. What I don't want to see is I Googled, and that's what I see for 10 of your sources. That's not a search strategy. That's just an easy way to try to put a paper together. So I'm hoping your strategy included talking to a librarian, talking to somebody on campus, setting up an interview, sending off for some information using a website, a YouTube video, certainly academic journals. So show me that you can find a lot of different sources there. Number 2, you found sufficient information. You've got a lot of good information. Number 3, you have really good evaluations. Number 4, you have a summary that's really quality. 5, you did well in your works cited and the parenthetical references as far as how to do it, as far as the form goes. Number 6, the quotation. A blend means you use part of a sentence that was you, and a part of the sentence is the quotation itself. You didn't put a lot of long quotations in there, more than 4 lines, but if you did, you know how to do that correctly. Number 7, don't lose track. Don't let the grammar fall apart. You still have to have good sentences, complete sentences, and things like that. All right, so I'm whipping through this kind of quickly. I hope that's all right. Make sure you email me if you have any issues or any questions at all, because this paper counts a lot. It counts twice as much as any other paper that you write in the class. So if you have a big problem, first of all, it hurts the grade because you lose a lot of points. But more than that, if this is the paper you decide to rewrite, it's hard to rewrite a research paper. It kind of eats you up. I mean, what if you only had 4 sources and I give it back to you and it doesn't have a good grade? Now, we're toward the end of the semester, you have to go hustle more sources, or it's something big that's wrong with the paper. It's tough to get it fixed up in time. So try to do as great a job as you can on this. So please email me with any questions or concerns that you have. All right, thanks.